Supervillain teams are like the best thing in comics, man. When you've got a superhero team, it's a bunch of heroes teaming up to stop a big bad. Cool. But when you've got a supervillain team, oh, it's just the best. A bunch of bad guys, criminals, losers, haters, just joining up to take down a good guy. Joining up to take down somebody who's idealistic, who does well for society. Just big old group hating activities. The hilarious thing. And there's some pretty good ones out there too. But which villain team is the best in comics? To me, this question has a clear-cut answer. The answer is the Sinister Six.
Now then, Arachnid, any last words? Humana comes to mind.
Y'all should know him. It's the formation of 6 of Spider-Man's most dastardly foes. The roster isn't always the same, but the moniker never changes. The Sinister Six. Y'all definitely heard this somewhere. It's so prominent. The Sinister Six are without a doubt the best villain team in comic book history. But why? Well, that is the goal of this video today. I'm going to talk about some of the best stories that feature the Sinister Six, the best adaptations that feature the Sinister Six, as well as my favorite. But before we can get into all that though, I gotta ask y'all, if you could make your own lineup of Spider-Man villains to form your own Sinister Six, who would be on it? Choose from any Spider-Man character. I'll tell you guys my preferred Sinister Six at the end of the video, and give my reasoning as well, so stick around. Before we can explain why this team is the best villain team in comics though, we gotta establish who they are. Let's talk about the original Sinister Six story. The Sinister Six first appeared in the very first annual issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1 is the very first time ever 6 of Spider-Man villains formed up to take him down. The team was created by Doc Ock, and it originally featured the likes of Mysterio, Electro, Kraven, Sandman, and the Vulture. This issue is such a phenomenal issue in Spider-Man comics. Not only does Spider-Man fight the entirety of the Sinister Six, but he also meets and sees many of Marvel Earth's best superheroes. It's such a cool issue, and honestly, what an annual issue should be. It should be larger than life. It should be massive, an annual issue. It should encompass a lot of stuff. Spider-Man swinging through the city, running into countless heroes while also battling the Sinister Six. This is peak. There's no way around it. Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six isn't really a 1v6 though for the first time. You see, Doc Ock is the founder of the team, and he set up the rules for how this was going to go. Doc Ock planned it so that Spider-Man would fight each member of the Sinister Six on their own terms, so they'd all have their own advantages. So they all fought Spider-Man one at a time, essentially. On top of that, though, Doc Ock also kidnapped Betty Brant, who was with Aunt May, so he coincidentally happened to kidnap Aunt May as well. So Doc Ock set it up so that every single one of the Sinister Six members was going to fight Spider-Man in a 1v1. They would all have the advantage, while Spider-Man was also having to fret and worry about the fact that Aunt May and Betty Brant just were kidnapped. As if Spider-Man didn't have enough reason to rise to the occasion, they kidnapped his crushed co-worker friend and his Aunt May. Really quick, I actually love this panel so much. Aunt May and Betty Brant were just kidnapped, and Betty Brant's like, watch out for that guy Doc Ock. And then Aunt May's like, you shouldn't be judging people, sweetie. He could be a nice young man. It's like, this man kidnapped you. Do you have Stockholm Syndrome, Aunt May? Can you make sense of this? Wild that Aunt May and Otto would go on to have a very geriatric relationship, but we're going to move on. Spider-Man would go into battle with each one of these 6 scoobers, who all had the upper hand on him every single time. Electro in the power plant, Kraven in the jungle, Mysterio in the X-Men's danger room, damn, that's an insane buff. A contained room for Sandman, Vulture fought in an aerial battle, and then Doc Ock fought in a fish tank. Spider-Man beat them all. To me, the hardest of these is probably Mysterio in the danger room. Electro on a power plant is super dangerous, but Electro's just a fucking idiot, it doesn't matter. Kraven in the jungle is barely a buff. Spider-Man's not going to fret over fighting some tigers. Sandman in a contained room actually helped Spider-Man out. Spider-Man's lungs apparently worked better than Sandman, so Sandman actually had to breathe. He just stopped moving. Spider-Man leaves. Vulture in the air, that's not... Come on, Spider-Man, that's the only place Spider-Man fights Vulture regularly. And then Doc Ock in a fish tank was also pretty hard as well, considering Spider-Man can't breathe underwater, and Doc Ock had an air of tank. Doc Ock and Mysterio, with their advantages, easily proved to be the biggest threats to Spider-Man. Either way, though, Spider-Man managed to beat them all in 1v1s, one after the other. He frees Betty and Aunt May, and then the Sinister Six go to jail. This is the first time the Sinister Six ever show up. The first time we ever see the best villain team in comic book history. I freaking love this book. But we gotta keep it a buck. This was terrible planning by Doc Ock. Are you serious? Are you serious? First off, the Sandman advantage didn't even work. What were you doing, Doc? And then we go from there. Why not just fight 6v1 or like 3v1, 2v1 kind of like style, you know? I get you want to amplify each villain and you don't want to have to worry about how the amplifications would affect the other villains they're fighting with, but Spider-Man has already beaten all of these goobers before. Like all of them. I don't understand why you think you can 1v1 them, but just because you put a little of your own expertise into it, they're going to win now. Like, I get you didn't want to have Electro in the fish tank with you, Doc Ock, but, like, you could have just not been in a fish tank. I think you and Electro would do a better job, honestly, than having the fish tank as your ally. But hey, that's just my thoughts on the issue. The team is officially here, right? We have Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1. Although some members may be switched out eventually as the story goes on and the team continues, the team name remains and it's just so goddamn iconic. The Sinister Six would actually take a break for a while, but then they would appear in a plethora of comics over the years. The team doesn't show up for a bit, like I just said, but you will then see them again in the return of the Sinister Six, this time with a different swap out, right? You don't have Kraven anymore, you have Hobgoblin. The team is then seen again in Revenge of the Sinister Six, and this time around, Doc Ock is really not a team player at all. Like, Sandman gets on his bad side and he literally turns him into glass in front of the rest of the team. Had them shook. He really did not have any regards for his teammates on this one. If you've never read Spider-Man Ends of the Earth, you must. The Sinister Six are essentially tanking the planet and taking everyone down on Earth with them. Spider-Man makes a badass suit to fight them off and even shows up with a little bit of friends. And by friends, I mean the fucking Avengers, guys. Holy moly. This scene is actually really dope when you have the Avengers squaring off against the Sinister Six. Because although the Avengers should be disturbingly more powerful, the Sinister Six kind of hold their own. I mean, Spider-Man's villains are very, very strong, and they get a bad rap because Spider-Man is just so powerful. When they fight anybody else, it's a little bit harder for the heroes to win because these guys are tough. My favorite moment from this fight is definitely like this spite moment when Electro tries to shock Spider-Man, right? He doesn't realize that Spider-Man electric-proofed his suit. Spider-Man actually Sinister Six-proofed his suit, so he was ready for all of them. But on top of that, he's like, oh, and I also called him a friend. And then Thor comes in and literally sucks up Electro and sends him to the moon. The moon. It's a fire storyline. Strongly recommend for everybody. But the last storyline I want to talk about in the comics before we talk about adaptations of the Sinister Six has to be the death of Spider-Man from the original Ultimate Universe. This storyline is freaking insane. Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six. Really 5 because Green Goblin actually killed Doc Ock right before it started. He beat him to death in the streets. Oh my god. You've got Spider-Man versus these 5 goons who have already decided they want to kill Spider-Man. And on top of that, Spider-Man isn't even really all there. He literally just got shot by a sniper saving this piece of shit known as 1610 Captain America. So we have these 5 menaces versus a boy who had just been shot by a sniper. You may think Spider-Man should die easily, but nah. He turns it the fuck up against these guys, throttling them and outsmarting them every way he can while also dealing with a sniper injury. After removing the majority of the pieces off the board, it's Spider-Man versus Goblin. Goblin is going crazy. He's malicious. He's just very dangerous, and Spider-Man has to put him down, right? He has to stop him. So Spider-Man picks up a truck and drops on the Green Goblin. The explosion would be enough to stop the Green Goblin, and it would knock him unconscious, so he wouldn't be harming any more citizens. But the explosion would also cause Spider-Man to freaking die. Spider-Man succumbs to his injuries he received that night and the battle damage he had suffered from. This is literally the death of Ultimate Spider-Man. He's dead. Yeah, there's some stuff later on down the line after like 100 issues or so, but he's dead, guys. He's gone. What a godlike story, man. This version of the Sinister Six themselves, though, I don't think is the best team. I'm not the biggest fan of Doc Ock and Green Goblin on the team together. I honestly don't like Green Goblin on the team at all. I think Green Goblin is a very personal villain for Spider-Man, and it just gets way above that level of like, I'm working with the rest of these guys to take you down. Like, Green Goblin seems like somebody who wants to do it himself. Honestly, hate him on the team. But this storyline is just so well done, I look past it. The drawings, the fight scene, the way it looks, the dialogue. Are you serious? It's phenomenally done. The Sinister Six really made the death of Spider-Man into one of the most badass moments in any Spider-Man comic ever written. The other comic book I would want to talk about with the Sinister Six is obviously the best comic book on the market right now. That's Ultimate Spider-Man 2024. However, there's actually an upcoming Sinister Six arc where they're all like infighting and trying to beat each other down and trying to get supremacy of New York City. And I kind of want to wait for that before I talk about them. Haven't been fleshed out much. We do know that Doc Ock didn't assemble these guys either. Kingpin did this time. But I would love to see more before I actually come to a final decision or judgment on this version of the Sinister Six. But as of now, I love them. Let me just say that. I love everything about this book. Y'all know that if you follow the channel. I think this book is peak. So it follows suit that I would think this version of the Sinister Six is peak as well. And I definitely do. The Sinister Six would appear in more comics, but the ones I've highlighted are like the ones that are my favorites, honestly. The ones that I feel like are the most important to understanding who the Sinister Six are. Now that we've broken it down a little bit, let's just be straightforward. The team should be filled with Spider-Man's best foes, people who hate Spider-Man, strictly Spider-Man, and Doc Ock should be the founder of the team. And they should all pose a threat to Spider-Man as well. Like, when you put the 6 of them together, they should be a threat. Like, if you have 6 people together and Spider-Man's still trouncing them, it's not a good Sinister Six, in my opinion. 2 shows adapted the Sinister Six the best. I'm going to give you guys a chance to guess what it is. You guessed it right. The 90s and the Spectacular Show. These shows are just bangers for adaptations, man.
Check, please.
On the house, sir?
How kind of you. And wise.
Neither of them are perfectly done, but I thoroughly enjoy both. Let's look at the 90s first. The 90s Sinister Six team is comprised of Doc Ock, Scorpion, Mysterio, Rhino, Shocker, and the Chameleon. The Chameleon? If you haven't checked out my video on the Chameleon yet, you should totally do so. I just dropped it. It's a banger. Anyways, this Sinister Six team has a very unique composition. The only 2 consistent members on the team are Doc Ock and Mysterio. Scorpion, Rhino, Shocker, and Chameleon are all very interesting additions, in my opinion. They're not really, the main squeeze. They may have been members in the past, but none of them are the consistent Sinister Six outside of Doc Ock and Mysterio. But I don't mind this composition. It's definitely not the best. It's a solid composition. The real big issue with this Sinister Six team, in my opinion, is that Kingpin is the one who assembles them. That should be Doc Ock's job. This Kingpin hates Spider-Man so much that it makes sense that he would be like the one who would make it personal and get a team of hired villains to kill Spider-Man. But it just feels better to me when Doc Ock is the one doing it. But what makes this story extra interesting, in my opinion, is that at this time of the events in the show, Spider-Man is actually losing his powers. So he has to take on the Sinister Six without any powers. He has to fool them with his brain, and then slowly his powers come back, and then he could finally fight them again. It's very dramatic. I loved it. The show isn't really known for its action scenes as well, so I don't really mind the fact that it's not just like a big old brawl between Spider-Man and his 6 biggest villains. It's more like a drawn-out, like dramatic situation amongst 2 different episodes, and I appreciate that too. I think it was very well done. In the Spectacular Spider-Man show, things are closer to the comics. Doc Ock does make this team, and the team is similar to the comics as well. The comics composition. This team is Doc Ock, Vulture, Electro, Sandman, Shocker, and Rhino. Shocker and Rhino being the 2 that aren't mainstays, but still, 4 mainstays is pretty good. The main difference in this arc for this show is that in their first encounter, Spider-Man's actually in the symbiote suit, and Spider-Man's actually not even awake. Spider-Man's sleeping the whole time. The suit actually just takes on the fight for him, which I can see why a lot of people may not love this because it's not really Spider-Man doing it. It's the Venom suit. It's not Venom suit. It's the black suit symbiote suit doing it, but it's one of the best animated fight scenes in a Spider-Man show ever, if not the best one. Right? Like, he's taking on all 6 of these guys, and the suit is just on fire with how badly it's just maiming them. It's cooking them alive. The suit, Venom, the black suit, is so awesome in this episode. But Spider-Man would run into the Sinister Six a second time in the show, this time with Mysterio and Kraven added on instead of Doc Ock and Shocker. Doc Ock is actually behind it all, but he doesn't want anyone to know this. So he's like a behind-the-scenes role at this point in the show. And then, like, adding Mysterio and Kraven does add 2 usual members, 2 mainstay members to the team as well. But then you get rid of Doc Ock being on the team, who's like the Sinister Six leader. So you take what you can get. This time around, Spider-Man has no symbiote on him, and he has to beat the squad himself. I like that they do this in a way that's similar to an adaptation we're going to talk about in a bit. But I like how it's not like the 1v1 way that Doc Ock had in the original comic. What I really appreciate, it's like 2v1, 2v1, 2v1. It's it's way easier to still be able to maximize the people's abilities that are fighting Spider-Man, and they're working in a team of 2. I get understanding in a team of 6, there's gonna be some overlap, right? If you have Electro and Hydro in a team together in a team of 6, they could literally just evaporate everybody on accident. So you want to do like a team of 2 and just separate the 2. I get that, and I'm a big fan of how Spectacular Spider-Man portrayed that in the show because it just makes more sense as a storyline, like when you're talking about plotting from a villain's standpoint, right? That's just my opinion, though. Let's move to the live action, okay? Did you know that Sony wanted to make their own version of the Sinister Six? They were going to make a Sinister Six movie. Throughout my lifetime, there was 2 separate Sinister Six movies rumored to be made by Sony. Think about that. 2. It's kind of nuts. The first one was supposed to be a film following up after The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It would have been a 2-part film, and the Sinister Six would have been Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Rhino, Kraven, Mysterio, and Vulture. The team itself is actually pretty damn good. I don't like Green Goblin on the team, and I've made that clear already. But in this universe, he's creating the team. He's leading it. We already know how the Amazing Spider-Man universe works. Similar to the Kingpin, I'll let it slide because it could have been cool. But also, Then I hear that Paul Giamatti's Rhino would have been the Rhino for this team, and it's just like, I'm good, guys. I don't need it. You guys can keep it, Sony. Cancel it right now. If you're going to bring back the one of the worst Rhino portrayals I've ever seen in my entire life, just throw the whole movie away. I don't want it. Can't imagine how this movie would have looked, man. Truly can't. They already have a hard enough time having 2 villains in a movie at the same time without it feeling overcrowded. They want to have 6 and have the movie be about them. Like, was Spider-Man even going to be in this film? Apparently him and Mary Jane and Black Cat were all going to be in this film. Just over chock-filled, so many promises, and nothing was going to come from it. We all should have known better. However, after the success of the Venom movie, Amy Pascal, one of the higher-ups at Sony, stated the Sinister Six movie would be made again. The idea was that the villains in the Sony universe were going to form their own Sinister Six, led by Vulture from the MCU. Lord have mercy, that would have been terrible. What? And they don't even have a Spider-Man. So they were going to have a Sinister Six with no Spider-Man. And we don't really know what they were going to do. My question is, what were they going to do? I would guess Venom would be the good guy fighting the Sinister Six, because Venom is not a bad guy in these films. But also, Venom doesn't fight the Sinister Six in the comics. I know it's not going to be Andrew Garfield. He openly stated he wasn't going to come back and work with Sony because they screwed him over. And he has every right to think that I'm with him, bro. They screwed him over. He got sick and they fired him. Fuck that. But, so who are they going to use as Spider-Man? Were they going to ask Tom Holland to be Spider-Man? They could have. They had all the rights to do so. I mean, they could have done that the entire time they were doing the Sony Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man. They could have had Tom Holland in it, but they chose not to do so. They could have had a random actor play Spider-Man. I have no idea what this would have been like. This is easily significantly worse than the original idea. The original idea at least works in the timeline of the Amazing Spider-Man film franchise. This is just horrid. Vulture from the MCU was going to be the leader of the team and he was going to assemble it. He's not even from this universe. How does he know anybody? This would have been terrible. Oh my God. Let's talk about the one kind of Sinister Six we got in live action, okay? Because we kind of did get one sort of resembling it in No Way Home. Spider-Man villains from across the multiverse come to battle Spider-Man, only it's not 6 characters. 6 characters come across the multiverse, but only 5 of them end up fighting Spider-Man. Venom just goes and like fucks off in Mexico for a bit. I don't know. This is actually like the closest we're ever going to get to a Sinister Six movie. Like, it's not even like come on, guys. They're never going to be able to put 6 villains in a movie, bro. They're not going to be able to. And if they do, people are just going to complain about it. So they're probably just going to do this last one and they're never going to look back at it again. But No Way Home had 5 villains versus Spider-Man and a 6th villain just chilling in Mexico. So it's the closest we're going to get to the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six itself is pretty mids, right? Again, there's a Green Goblin on it, and I don't like the idea of Green Goblin being like a leader or assembling the team. And although he doesn't essentially assemble them himself, he's definitely their leader based on like what we're seeing. He's riled them all up. Gods don't have to choose, we take. He's making Electro be evil. Sandman turns evil. Lizard breaks out and is acting evil. So like Green Goblin is clearly like the motivator leader of this team, even if he didn't assemble them. So I don't really like that aspect of it. I think it's kind of dumb. Obviously, I also think they should have just added a 6th person in. They could have had one of Tom Holland's villains, like Shocker, show up. I think it's kind of random they didn't do that. I know Shocker is not a big deal, but it would have formed out 6. You would have had your Sinister Six, and people would have been happy if Shocker didn't have the most screen time. We don't care about Shocker being like this super duper fleshed out villain. Like, at least I don't. I think he's really good, but I don't think he needs the most screen time for you to get the point of the Shocker across. Sorry, that's just my opinion. Shocker fans out there, I'm not saying Shocker's a bad character. Just not much depth. But overall, No Way Home is quite the spectacle. I love it. It's so fun to marvel at, seeing Spider-Man versus the villains, and it's also sort of like a Spider-Verse storyline because it's like the Spider-Man versus the villains. I loved it. It's kind of dumb there wasn't a 6th villain, but I did love the movie, and I love like the spectacle of it all. We've talked a lot about the Sinister Six comics. We've talked about the Sinister Six in the cartoons. We've talked about the Sinister Six potential movie and then the one time, sort of time it did appear in the movies. Let's talk about my favorite adaptation now of the Sinister Six we've ever gotten, Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4. My God, this adaptation is just so freaking good. The team comp isn't super accurate, but it doesn't matter. The writing and voice acting make it so worth it. Playing this game makes it so worth it. The team is Doc Ock, Vulture, Scorpion, Rhino, Mr. Negative, and Electro. It's fire. It's not the original cast team, but every single member on this team, I can see why they would be there. Doc Ock makes sense, he's the leader. Vulture makes sense, he's not that strong. Scorpion makes sense, he's kind of dumb. Rhino, it makes sense, he's kind of dumb. Mr. Negative makes sense because he can't honestly be politically aligned as being a villain, so he can work with the rest of the villains to make sure it gets done. And Electro, he's pretty dumb. So all in all, I think this team up is phenomenal, man. The entire storyline also builds toward Doc Ock wanting to help people, and then Norman Osborn ruins that. So who does Doc Ock end up helping? He helps these villains. He makes designs for these villains that would aid them and help them return and break out of prison, right? He helps them go back to their villainy so that he can get what he wants out of it. It's a straight descent into villainy on Doc Ock's own end. He wants to help people. He does help people, but it's not the people he initially started out to help. Anyways, him helping out all these villains leads to the formation of the Sinister Six. Spider-Man being the one who put all the villains behind bars, they already have a vendetta against them. We don't need to see it. We know based on the storyline, these villains are already in jail, in prison, because Spider-Man put them there. When you see the scene of Spider-Man on the raft versus the six of them at night, peak. Fucking peak. I love this scene. This could be one of my favorite scenes, if not my favorite scene in any video game ever. No other word for this scene besides peak. And then the fight against all of them as well is just super fire. The sets of two as well, like I talked about in Spectacular Spider-Man, just makes sense. It truly does not make sense to me why Doc Ock, the super genius he is and all of his intellectual prowess, would actively choose to send all these people who already lost to Spider-Man in a 1v1 back into a 1v1 against them. The only way you can make sense of this is if Doc Ock truly believed that he wanted to be the winner and he was saving everybody to tire them out so that lastly he can go up and just stomp the webhead out how he knows best. He would just do him dirty. Then it all comes together with the final showdown of Doc Ock and Spider-Man on the building. I can't say enough good things about this adaptation of the Sinister Six. I fucking love Marvel's Spider-Man. This video set out to answer a question. Why is the Sinister Six the best villain team? If this video hasn't subtly answered that question for you already, allow me to be very overt with it. This Sinister Six are the best villain team in comics because it's comprised of some of the most notable comic villains ever, and they all fight against Spider-Man, the greatest comic book hero ever. You don't get that. You just don't get that anywhere else, man. Usually it's heroes all teaming up to take down one big bad. This is multiple big bads teaming up to take one godlike hero down. Fire. What other villain team has nearly as iconic of a composition and fights against an unbelievably iconic character? Not even characters, just one. To me, it's not even close. The Sinister Six are the best villain team by a country mile. You made it through this entire video, so let me tell you who I would choose to have on my hand-picked Sinister Six. For me, it's got to start with Doc Ock. Like I said, he's the maker of the team. Then I would fill it up with dumber, less formidable opponents for Spider-Man. Mysterio works for sure. Vulture works for sure. Electro can too because that guy is as dumb as rocks. With Doc Ock's tutelage, maybe he can use some bits of his brain to actually do something. I don't really need Sandman on the team, and I also feel like Kraven should be more of a solo hunting act. So instead of these two on the team, I would add Rhino and Hobgoblin. Rhino goes without saying, all the strength, no brain, so naturally he would want to join Doc Ock. And then Hobgoblin's more of a wild card. He's willing to quit on the team. He's willing to blow up the team as well if he has to. He would do anything he needed to. So I would love to have a wild card on the team as well. My team would be Doc Ock, Mysterio, Vulture, Electro, Rhino, and Hobgoblin. That is for sure my ideal Sinister Six team. But again, what about you? What's your ideal team, people? Please comment down below. Let me know who you would put on your perfect Sinister Six team. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. I had a blast making it, rereading all the Sinister Six stories again. Like, they're so much fun. They're so epic because there's so many villains trying to take down the God, the Don, Spider-Man himself. If you enjoyed this video, you should leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think down below. Again, you can check out the Patreon in the description. The Discord's in the description as well if you'd like to talk to me on Discord. And that's about it for me in this video. I think I got nothing else left to say. Dunk out. Peace.